Happy Wednesday. Hope you are having a great day. I got this question last week and I wanted to talk about it, and it was all about toxic team members. And so I want to talk about one, how toxic team members come to be, what to do with them when they are in your business or on your team, and really how to recognize when you have a toxic team member. So, first of all, what I'm going to say might be a little bit of a trigger for some people. So just have that as a blanket warning. And also, I firmly believe that toxic team members are not made. Like they don't come to teams toxic. I believe they are created. So I'm going to talk about that. So the three things I believe contribute to toxic team members or employees or bosses or any number of things or roles is environment. So I've seen through the course of time some companies that I've come in and consulted with who have let their culture become toxic, and that comes generally from competition, which competition is a good thing, but inter-team competition is not a good thing. And generally, this type of competition comes from people who feel like they have to compete to get the recognition that they deserve for the work that they've done, which unfortunately then breeds resentment and all sorts of other team issues. So, environment is number one. If you have this kind of creeping toxic culture, it will just continue to get worse. The analogy I use is if you have like a raspberry that has mold on it and it's in the what's it called? A claw basket? I don't know. Anyway, it's in the basket that you buy it with the clamshell. I think that's what it's called, a clamshell. It will start infecting other berries around it. The same is true for toxic employees. Soon you'll have a whole moldy culture. Not awesome. Number two, leadership. And this is where this may trigger some people. If you have a toxic employee, the first place to look is at the leader that is directly above them. That could be you, that could be a manager, that could be any number of people. But generally, back to my previous statement, toxic team members are not made, they are created. And so if you have a leader in a position that is either not recognizing, not appreciating, not supporting, not giving feedback, doing the things to really help the person under them to grow and to cultivate and grow their tools and their skills and really make an impact, it will start breeding that really tricky word, which is resentment. And so resentment is really, I believe, the starting point of all toxic team members. And then the third is the role. So we refer to this the three C's. This is actually what my mentor Roger Hamilton taught me a while ago. The three C's. So somebody like a true high performing team member needs to fit all three C's. The first is they have to be a culture fit. Second, they need to have the capacity. And third, they need to have the capability. And the middle C, capacity, is the thing that I see most often create really cranky, toxic employees. Because really, and nobody wants to be toxic, but if they're continually feeling like they're not being heard or they're overworked or undervalued, they're gonna start to act out. And I mean, we all have a little kid inside, right? Like, what happens if you don't get what you want? You have a little temper tantrum. It's human. Yes, we grow. Hopefully, those shouldn't be happening. But the biggest thing I want to say is when you look at your team, if you have somebody that's underperforming or really it's not very happy or causing drama in the team, chances are it is because there is something wrong with the role that you have put them in. So that thing could be that they really are drowning with too much stuff and they need like a power partner to help them take over some of that responsibility. It could be that the deadlines that are set are just unhuman. They can't reach them and they just continually feel like they're failing. Um, It could be that the things that you hired them for initially, they're just really not a fit for, or the role has changed. And so they're still like on that merry-go-round of like feeling like they're doing the best they can, but the best they can is not really the best that you need. Um, and so when you look at all of this, it's a perfect storm for toxic employees or team members. And so, like, again, as I said before, I do not believe that anybody comes to a company saying, God, I'm going to be a toxic employee and team member and just take the whole company down. I don't think anybody does that. If they do, that's probably a different discussion, and maybe like they need a psychological evaluation. Most people want to come to a job or come to a job because they want to make a difference. They want to do a good job. They want to do things that they like to do. And as leaders and business owners and CEOs, sometimes we let them down because we set them up for failure by putting them into roles that we think they will fit into instead of really listening to them and clarifying what their genius is. We do this through wealth dynamics. Or, my favorite is when you try to create a role, or you create a role that's really for a unicorn, and your unicorn is really good at maybe two of those things that you have in that role. And the other things that you want them to do, they just are not capable of doing. So that creates this cycle of frustration and resentment and miscommunication and lack of trust. All of those things together create this toxic environment. So if you have a toxic employee or team member, the first thing to do is sit down and listen. That's the very first thing, because they'll tell you why they're not happy. Yes, sometimes it's complaining, but a lot of times they'll tell you what's wrong and they'll tell you what they want to do to fix it. And 9 times out of 10, I've seen this over and over again. If you listen, you give them a solution that they made up and not a solution that you created for them, but really asked, what do you want? And listened and gave it to them. Of course, some things you can't give them, but in general, there's a way to have something there. Then they go back to being their happy little selves. And it's like a blip. You have to nip it in the bud though. So if you start seeing people who were once all stars now starting to like not perform, or you hear gossip or drama, or you're starting to get like feedback from the team that like so and so is not pulling their weight, or it's just like a lot of drama, or this is another one, this is a good key, that there's drama brewing, they're going around their leader. If you have an employee or team member that is going around their direct report, chances are there is something there that is going to create problems. So it could be trust, it could be leadership, it could be any number of things. But as a CEO, you need to be able to trust your team and your leaders to look for these items, have the hard, sometimes hard conversations, and really look. And then at the end of the day, if you've looked at leadership, you've had the conversation, you've made a battle plan, and they're still toxic or they're still dragging the team down, then unfortunately, that is the time to let it go. And I always like to, again, evaluate on the 3 C's: culture, capacity, and capability. And if you've, like I said, had the conversation, looked at leadership, looked at everything, including the role, and it's just not a fit, then fire fast. I like to say hire slow, fire fast. I also like to make sure that we as leaders and CEOs are looking at ourselves first. And like I said, I've seen it time and time again with clients when I come into their companies, where just the slightest tweak in communication or leadership or how you interact with someone in that role can be the difference between somebody being like a okay employee to being a great employee. So, hope that was helpful. Have a great week, and I will see you next week.